I'm Evan. I am 30, and the strangest thing my mother ever asked for on her birthday wasn't jewelry or a reservation. She wanted quiet. Specifically, quiet from me. Not an argument, not a scene, just my absence, wrapped like a present. The way she said it made it sound like kindness. That was the part that got me, the way harm can wear soft fabric and good lighting. The day started with the kind of ordinary that makes you think you imagined last year. My radiator clicked itself awake like a polite old man clearing his throat. The window let in a gray that wasn't weather so much as a mood. I made coffee, burned the first slice of toast, and stood in the hum of the fridge trying to measure my chest. Birthday day, I told myself, which used to mean balloons and rolls of tape and late-night photo edits while Mom rehearsed her speech into a hairbrush. This year, I had promised myself I'd do nothing heroic. Show up on time, give the gift she circled in a shop window weeks ago, keep my face friendly and my sentences unsticky. That was the plan. The gift was a scarf, beige with a thread of gold you only saw when it moved. Her language for elegant without boasting. I had gone back to the window twice before buying it, the way you circle a decision to make sure you're not confusing capitulation with care. The clerk wrapped it like it was fragile and said something about timelessness. I heard the word evidence. At home, I wrote a card in the tone I want to use for the rest of my life, truthful without throwing a brick. Thank you for grit. Thank you for teaching me how to keep a room from coming apart with tape and a list. I didn't write, thank you for turning my usefulness into a leash. I'm trying to stop writing things I'll regret even when they're accurate. By 10 a.m., the family group chat had become logistics theater. Leah, my younger sister, sent a selfie from the back of a rideshare, hair half done, eyeliner gentle on purpose. She texted, on eggshell duty, our old joke for intercepting the tiny shards that end up in batter and conversations. My mother posted a photo of the restaurant table already set, long white napkins like flags of truce, a balloon anchored to a chair, a row of menus that could pass for chapbooks. Underneath she wrote, grateful for my circle, come ready to celebrate peace. Peace in my family often means quiet from people who make the room honest by accident. I showered, shaved, and put on the sweater that makes me look like I have my mail forwarded. On the way out, I hesitated at the door and checked my pockets for my apology. Not the paper, my brain's version, the speech I'd been crafting for days. Sorry for pulling away, sorry for rationing help to feel noble, sorry for the resentment I still hold from the year you used my college fund to pay the power bill without telling me, and then called it family weather. I planned to say it in the parking lot after cake, trunk light making truth look less dramatic. Then we'd talk about counseling like it was a dentist appointment. That was the fantasy, a neat fix in a neutral space. My therapist calls it hope without scaffolding. The restaurant was one of those suburban diplomats that tries to be French and Thai and family-friendly at the same time. It had the special talent of making everyone look 5% healthier. My mother loves that talent. She was already there, immaculate and tuned an octave brighter than usual. She took attendance with her eyes like she always does, checking who came late, who came without needing to be begged. She kissed my cheek with precision and left a perfectly intentional imprint of lipstick like a notarized hello. I handed her the gift bag. She squeezed the handles as if feeling the thread count of my intentions.
Leah touched my elbow, slid into the chair beside me, and whispered the day's assignments. Who to sit near, who needed compliments, which aunt had arrived tender. She is not a spy, she is a kindness professional. When we were kids, Mom called her my delicate one and me my rock. No one explains to children that rocks erode one rainy season at a time. The first 20 minutes were exactly the opening act we've been staging since I was tall enough to lift a folding table. Compliments, safe gossip, knee updates, sales. The server took drink orders, bread arrived. I passed plates and kept my hands visible to the room like a man approaching a skittish animal. Mom floated, checking water glasses, practicing gratitude at cruising altitude.
It was familiar enough that my shoulders forgot their job for a second. Then she stood and tapped her glass with a fork. Her favorite room, the one where gratitude has a microphone, opened itself like a stage. She thanked God and my tribe. She named her sacrifices in the tone of someone reading a grocery receipt. Practical, long, meant to be noticed more than debated. Nights she stayed up sewing costumes. Mornings she ate the burnt peas so we wouldn't have to. Years she went without so we could have. If you grew up like me, you know the exact rhythm. Love narrated as accounting. And then she pivoted to what birthdays have become for her, protecting peace. Getting older means shedding what doesn't serve growth, she said, smiling the kind of smile that asks the room to applaud wisdom. Usually she keeps it vague, the shape of certain energies and some people. Not this time. She used my name. She called me hyper-independent, said my distance felt like punishment, and suggested that the kindest thing I could offer for a while might be space. A clean break, a reset. She said it in the soft tone reserved for strangers you want to impress. The room sighed in approval, the way rooms do when sentences sound expensive. Everybody got it. She wanted me to leave her alone. She wanted the quiet that comes when the helper steps back and, in stepping back, can be blamed for any silence that follows. She asked for it as a gift. The apology in my pocket went flat. I didn't feel fury. I felt the clearest click I've felt as an adult, like a latch choosing the correct strike plate. Owning the request out loud had done me a favor. I could accept it without performing cruelty. I could treat it like logistics, not vandalism. I didn't counterspeech. I handed her the scarf after the clapping settled. She lifted it with ceremony. She can turn fabric into a vow. We ate. Someone told a joke about cholesterol. Someone else listed vitamins as if reciting a creed. Leah's hand found mine under the table and squeezed the rhythm that means we are living through a moment. Don't give it your face. On my way to the bathroom, I walked past the hostess stand into the tiled corridor that smells like disinfectant and relief, and I opened the draft I'd been assembling for months, my own list of expectations. Boring on purpose, office hours for my phone, topics that require calendar time, a definition of urgent that didn't include lost remotes. I added a line in plain black letters. 12-month pause. No in-person visits. Calls off. Email only for logistics. Revisit with a counselor. I stared until the words lost their drama and looked like instructions on a fire extinguisher. Then I put the phone in my pocket and washed my hands like a person. After dessert, after the candle blown out with performative humility, after the photo where everyone tilts their heads the same way we always have, I hugged people, accepted sugar box leftovers, and let Mom kiss my cheek again with the approval of a teacher grading a decent essay. In the parking lot, wind turned paper bags into percussion. Leah stood with me between cars, her arms full of takeout and a framed print she forgot to bring inside. That was a lot, she said, which is our dialect for please do not explode. I told her I'd be taking a year. She didn't argue or posture herself as the hinge. She asked what a year meant. I translated, not forever unless it has to be, not a punishment, not a movie trailer, just a year of not being staff. She nodded, and we did a small hug, the kind that doesn't promise the future, it accompanies you to the edge of the next hour. The next 48 hours were the kind of courage that looks like admin. I wrote a 3-paragraph letter, printed it, signed it, with a hand that surprised me by being steady. I said I would honor her request for space. I asked for a structured start and stop. I suggested a counselor for the first conversation after. I mailed it certified, not to be petty, but because I grew up in a house where things only existed if there was paper. I moved my emergency contact from my mother to my friend Nate, who answers his phone like an adult. I muted the family group chat and texted Leah privately with a phone tree for true emergencies. I canceled 2 subscriptions I ran for Mom, her monthly vitamins and the service that fixed her social media punctuation, and put the logins on a sticky note I mailed to Leah with a smiley face to keep it from feeling like I had handed her a bomb. Mom's reply arrived a week later. She writes like a woman who is paid for stationery. The letter said I was being literal, that birthdays are heightened, that I should have heard the heart beneath the words.
She itemized sacrifices like exhibits. She worried about optics, how my disappearance would read to people who know our story. She said it was getting hard and forgetting who needed whom. 2 sentences stuck to me like burrs. You used to need me. You are becoming unkind. My therapist read them and said, she needs you to need her because it keeps the story she knows symmetrical. You are changing shape. That can feel like cruelty to people who relied on your old shape. The first month of quiet sounded like a refrigerator at night, hums you only notice when the music's off. No, hey, are you nearby texts that turn into 3 errands. No casseroles that need carrying. No Saturdays that began as pancakes and ended as my mother conducting a seminar on my tone. I learned what Sunday is without escorting her down a church aisle that felt like a runway for our reputation. I sat in the back once and discovered the pew cushion remembers you even when you leave it alone for a season. Helpers hate pauses. An aunt wanted to broker peace. A family friend sent a long metaphor about gates and fences. I kept it simple. I'm honoring an ask. I will revisit in a year. I'm not litigating the pause in the meantime. Thanksgiving carried its own homing beacon. Instead of the long table, I ran by the river and ate takeout with 2 other refuseniks. We played a dumb game where you name the chore you're most grateful to never do again. Mine won, finding Mom's keys by psychic sweep. In December, Lee and I exchanged gifts in a grocery store parking lot because she didn't want Mom reading our wrapping paper like tea leaves. Leah said Mom had taken up watercolor, flowers painted like they owed someone an apology. Mom had started using words like energy more and favor less. She called me lost on Tuesday and independent on Friday. There's progress and there's public relations. Sometimes they wear the same shoes. I asked Leah if she was okay. She said she was learning to be. That is a brave sentence. It doesn't pretend becoming is painless. Winter stretched itself in the usual way. I learned mundane prosperity, sleep like a mammal, plants that don't die, dinner without an audience. I changed a tire in the rain and didn't narrate it into a parable. I met my dad for lunch. He carries guilt like a gym bag. He will put it on the chair between you if you let him. He apologized for disappearing when I was 12. I told him I wasn't going to comfort him for finally noticing. He nodded and changed the subject to a dog he walks like a penance. It wasn't healing, it was food. That was enough for a Tuesday.
6 months in, a letter came from Mom that didn't read like a press release. Short, sad. She wrote enmeshment and parentification, 2 words that sound like accusations until they feel like bricks you can build with. She said therapy was awful until it wasn't, then awful again. She didn't ask me to break the pause. She didn't recruit Leah as a courier. I put the letter on my fridge with a magnet shaped like a lemon because growth deserves hardware. 9 months in, Leah sent a screenshot of next year's birthday plan. It said brunch, small, no speeches. 3 ordinary words, just come eat. I didn't RSVP, I saved the screenshot. Some days, the quiet felt like I had thrown a party and forgotten to invite myself. Some days it felt like putting down a backpack after a long hike and discovering it was full of rocks I'd volunteered to carry. On the worst days, I almost called to give back the gift she asked for, because being needed used to flatter me, and flattery is a gentle drug. On those days, I stood in my kitchen, put both hands on the counter, and read the printed letter I had sent her, the way you check a map, not because you're lost, but to honor the route you chose. 12 months became a Wednesday. I emailed 2 dates and the name of a counselor. Mom suggested her dining room with just us. I said no. She said I was still punishing. I said I was keeping my word. We met at the clinic. Chairs that make you sit up straight. Walls with art prints that domesticate the hard while not pretending it's easy. The counselor had the kind of posture that suggests she can carry silence without needing you to fill it. Mom spoke like a person, not a ceremony. She said she had mistaken my usefulness for a love language. She admitted that performing sacrifice had felt holy until it felt like control. She told the story she never told. How when my dad left, fear taught her to keep people close by keeping them busy. She said she hated how small she had made me to avoid feeling alone. She said she didn't want to be the mother who needed her son to be a father. I kept my words boring on purpose. Boring keeps them from becoming weapons. I said I'd learned to keep the house together and called it duty because it felt nicer than fear. I said I wanted phone calls that weren't tasks, visits that weren't evaluations, holidays without roll call.
I said I loved her enough to stop proving it with overtime. I said Leah wouldn't be our postal service. I said birthdays would be invitations I can say yes to without contract negotiations in the parking lot. We didn't hug like a movie. We agreed on 2 small things that feel large when you've practiced theatrical love: monthly calls with a 30-minute limit, and no ambushes, no pop by since I was in the neighborhood, no emotions ducking under errands. Trying, not performing. Adult verbs. Her next birthday, my phone pinged with a simple text: brunch, low-key, if you want. I sent flowers and called after. We talked about watercolor class, the neighbor's new fence, a book that surprised her by not preaching at the end. When she pivoted toward last year, I edited us back to today. She didn't force the call back. That restraint was a gift I hadn't asked for and noticed anyway. Leah sent a photo from the brunch table. Modest cake, no banner, my mother's shoulders not trying to hold up the ceiling. She looked unarmed. Older, honestly, and unarmed wonderfully. I stared at the picture and felt something that wasn't triumph. It was room, the kind you can breathe in without borrowing a costume.
What changed in me wasn't a single heroic choice. It was a collection of unglamorous habits. I stopped answering the phone mid-errand. Not to punish, but to stop acting like I belonged to everyone all the time. I learned the difference between access and love. I learned that my face doesn't have to be available for rent just because someone I adore is having a day. I learned to say sentences that sound like vandalism to people who think availability is devotion. I can't do that today. That's not my job. I love you. No. On the anniversary of the pause, I bought myself the same scarf I gave her, beige with a whisper of gold, and wrote a card to the man I'm trying to be. You gave yourself time. You kept the house of your life from coming apart with tape and a list. Good job. I walked past the strip mall restaurant where we used to rent a room to stage our myth and let the wind flick the scarf against my jaw like a polite reminder. Inside, some other family was probably learning their lines. I didn't narrate them into a lesson. I just kept walking. People want tidy endings. They want villain and redemption and the line where the music swells. Here's the closest thing I have. My mother asked for quiet from me on her birthday. I gave it to both of us. In the space, she found words that didn't need applause. In the space, I found out that love isn't the same as access, and that boundaries aren't punishments. They're promises about how we'll behave toward ourselves and each other. We're not healed. We're not wrecked. We're practicing something that stays standing without speeches. Once a month, we talk for half an hour. Sometimes it's weather and grocery store gossip. Sometimes it's an admission that would have detonated in the old house. Last week, she said she drafted a midnight paragraph she knew would make me come running, and didn't send it. She wrote it in a notebook instead. That's what growth sounds like in our family now. Pages turning instead of doors slamming. I still keep the letter I mailed her under a lemon magnet on my fridge. Not to remember a fight, to remember a promise. When I'm tempted to go back to being indispensable, to confuse flattery with oxygen, I read the first sentence out loud and let it be boring, the way instructions should be. I'm honoring your request for space so we can try again like people, not a performance troupe. I'm Evan, 30. I can fix a drip, fold a fitted sheet, and keep a kitchen from falling apart with tape and a list. None of those are my job in anyone else's house anymore. The gift I gave my mother turned out to be a gift I needed more than I knew. The courage to believe people when they tell you who they are, and to believe myself when I say who I intend to be.